All right, what we plan to do is just go down the current budget, where we're at, and then we can get into the fee offices. Have you got anything from the jailer? Okay. All right, you should have a copy of the current budget. Erica has prepared that, so we'll just go down line by line so that we can see where we're at currently.
I have printouts for you all. One is the receipts and where we're at year to date, and the other is the expenditures on different departments and where we're at on those as well. We can go down those line by line if you want to. I'll kind of give you a brief overview and let you kind of skim and look maybe you want to talk about. And I'll tell you what stands out to me as something that we should be concerned about. So on the receipts page, when you look, the way that this kind of comes out of our new computer system, our initial budget on receipts goes in as a positive number. Any money we actually receive goes in as a negative number, so that the account balance, those two numbers can be added across, and that gives you the account balance. So when you see a positive account balance on the receipt page, it means that we still have budgeted receipts to receive. I put in a very last column of a percentage, and what that is the percent of the revenue that we budgeted that we have already received. So for example, the very first one says real property tax. We budgeted $1,575,000. We've received $1,532,276. So that means we've received 97% of what we budgeted for. So that's how you look at this when you go down. And then on the expenses page, it's actually the opposite. So the way that it goes into the computer system, all of our budgeted amounts go in as negative. That's why you see them there with parentheses around that. It represents a negative number. All the expenses that are actually made go in as a positive number, and that's the way they add across to have a negative balance for anything that still has budget that can be expended. I also put a percent use column on this on the far right-hand side. So for the very first one, judge executive salary, you'll see we've used 55%, and that's, we've used 56 of the 103 that we budgeted. Okay, so as far as what sticks out to me that we maybe should be concerned about, when you look at the receipts page, the first page, there's actually highlighted in gray the only really one thing that concerns me, and that is what we have budgeted for receipts in the jail for state prisoners. So we budget to receive 1.6 million, 1.65 actually, and we're only at 33%. And that's, as you go through and look at these, there's some others that we're on the low percentage side of what we've received. But some of those are state monies that come written from the state, and so I think that those monies, I think they'll just eventually show up. The state's been working from, those workers have been working from home a lot. I think we'll get those, so they don't concern me. This is what concerns me. It's not a timing issue. We've spoken to Roger, I guess probably about a month ago, about this receipt and how it was going, how the rest of his budget was going. And he agrees that there's a drastic decrease, of state inmates, and so that has really affected what his actual receipts are. If what's going on currently with his state inmate situation continues for the remainder of the fiscal year, we could potentially have we would reach our receipts and under that amount by $700,000 to $800,000. So we could be potentially $800,000 low on receipts for the budget for the jail. So the hope is that with fewer state inmates, potentially he'd have areas in his expense side of his budget that should be lower, because fewer people should mean lower expenses. But there are some expenses that are more static, and then there are some that's going to stay regardless of how many state inmates they have. The lights still have to stay on. They still have to have a certain number of guards or whatever. So we kind of spoke with him about some ways he could try to watch his expenditure side of his budget in anticipation of this overall shortfall in his receipts for the year. So we've had a conversation, and I think he's had a letter as well about that. So as far as looking through all of these and what really stands out to me, that's it. As far as going into next year, Judge already kind of hit on this, we'll pay off our AOC debt in '22, and so our, the amount that AOC gives us will drop. So if traditionally they've given us 4% and it's going to go down to a 2%, then you could use that information to decide, okay, we're going to get about half what we usually get. So that number is on the front page. It's under court rentals. It's $245,000 is what we budgeted for this year. So we can just assume that going into next year, we'll have $120,000 less there in that receipt line that we won't have for next year's budget. Just kind of as a conservative estimate, unless that, something like that could change, and we'll see if it does.
What's that annual payment on that AOC debt?
It is, hold on.
But it doesn't like trail a year?
The reimbursement,
Yeah, the way they do their audit, it will, as far as what they're paying now is based on expenses from the prior year.
So when you're paid off though,
Then it will drop, yeah.
it'll trail.
I don't know if it,
Yeah, I'm not sure about that part.
if they
like
base
20.
that on what happened if we were not paid in the year they're auditing,
Right.
or if now we're in a paid status. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know
we
enough
need to
about it. I can look into it and
figure
for
that
sure, and
out,
that way
'cause
we'll
you
have
wanna
that
know.
information.
Yeah, if it's a 22, 23, or is it a
Right.
20? I mean, I know it's coming down the road, but you need to,
I can send an email to them.
real quick, this is through what date? Just so I can make a note on my,
These receipts are up to date through, I updated this again yesterday or the day before that.
oh, okay, so these are
Yes.
up to 12/29 or whatever.
Now, I will say there are a few probably auto deposits that came through, that I don't see physical checks for that I have not put in yet. So there could be a few things,
And
but
same
they're not gonna
thing-
be material.
Same thing on the expense side,
Yes.
that includes those bills.
That expense one, yes, includes, so when you look at the expense side,
12/29 as well.
anything that was sitting, for the bills that were paid today, anything that was sitting in there that had not been moved to a paid status yet, and it hasn't, because we don't do that until after you guys vote.
Right.
It's actually gonna be, represented in here in an encumbrance line, so you'll see an
Okay.
encumbrance line for every,
Okay,
appropriation expenditure.
okay.
Okay, you can ask me what our payment was. Let's see. Our total outstanding debt, at the end of this fiscal year will be 538, and our yearly payments are usually 540, so we'll pay that completely off. Okay, so those are, let's see, I've said the jail thing that concerned me. I've said, when you keep in mind the AOC for next year. Oh, and the third thing, also going into next year. So we know what our retirement rates are gonna go up to. They're gonna increase both the hazardous rate and the non-hazardous rate. And so if we were to take, for the calendar year, exactly what we spent, this calendar year on wages, gross wages. So if we held everything constant, we would have about a $235,000 increase in retirement expenses for next year. And of course, that will continue to go up as every year, as they can, they choose to increase that to meet the outstanding balance in the retirement funds.
Give me that again.
It will be $235,000 for next year, increase in retirement.
We looked at the total percentage that's remaining, I think it's around 17%. Go up.
Really, that's all that I really wanted to highlight attention to as far as where we're at with this year's fiscal year budget. I also have a printout, if you want it, of what each department spent in gross wages. I just did that because wages are something that we always discuss, because it is such a big chunk of our budget. In just gross wages, we spent $7.4 million this calendar year. So that is not including FICA, Medicare, retirement match, health insurance, and life insurance. Of course, all of that information is, when you look at each fund that I've given you, the expenses, you could find every individual line. I also have it all together with the fund, if you want to see it that way, in case you have questions on that.
Erica, if you can, the 56% on the occupational tax.
Okay, yes. When I discussed this a little bit with Judge, and we kind of went through and I told him my concerns, and he asked questions. One of his questions was occupational tax and where we're at on that. So I'm sure you guys remember that we changed our occupational tax budget amount to 4.7. So, if you look there, that's actually on the second page, about halfway down the page. We're at 2.6 million collected, so we're at 56% collected. And as far as, so you can look at that two ways. The first way is how that looks for our budget, our fiscal year budget that we are in. So as far as our fiscal year budget, that seems like we're gonna be okay. We're gonna meet that 4.7 expectation likely, since we are already halfway there. But when you look at it from a different perspective, it also lends you kind of to think of be cautious, because, so usually what makes up occupational tax every year for our fiscal year is a payment that we get in July, a payment that we get in October, a payment we get in January, and a payment we get in April. Those 4 quarterly payments. And then April 15th is the deadline for net profit unless they extend. So we'll usually get the net profits, the majority of those in that year as well. Okay, so what happened that's different right now? So of course, in April, we extended our deadline to match the federal deadline. So that means for fiscal year 1920, we only had those 4 quarters and then some extensions and maybe some people who paid early despite us moving the deadline back. And what's in this, what we've already received, is some net profits from moving the deadline that normally we would have seen last year, and our quarters that we've already received. So, in a world without Corona, I would be concerned that we were only at 50% if we had, because we technically have extra money in there. Does that make sense how I'm explaining that? We have money that's not normally in there. So, as far as our budget goes, again, I think we'll be fine. But on a broader scale, to think about it in the future, this year, as we end this fiscal year, coming this April, unless for some reason the deadline's extended again, we'll hit our second net profit for this year, and it will cover the year of Corona. So we'll really see how affected net profits are. I think just by looking at where we're at now, as far as 50% of our 4.7, that also kind of gives us an indication of our quarterlies are definitely affected also, because we should probably be higher than that in a normal year. And as far as what those exact numbers are and what the differences are from year to year and kind of some historical data, I don't have that pulled. I will try to pull it for you as soon as I can, because I'm sure that that's something you'll want to think about as we go into budget discussions for next year. So I'll get that together, but that's just something to keep in mind as well. So not a hot concern, like we're not going to make it for this budget, but it's something that we need to keep thinking about and keep in the back of our heads.
You can get us same time, this time last year.
Yes.
12/29.
Yes, and I'll go back a couple of years, and that way we can kind of see
Okay.
what the trend's looking like.
Yes.
So as far as that, just like kind of the overall or general view, is that, have I answered most of the questions other than getting that kind of historical occupational tax data? Again, if you wanted to see by department gross wage breakdown, I have that printout too, if you want that. Other than that, I didn't bring much specific information for the overall budget. We can talk about it if that's how you guys want to play it. I assume that we would focus on the clerk's budget and the sheriff's budget, since they're the ones who have to have their, you guys have to make an approval before the 15th.
Is there any questions on the current budget she's laid out?
I will say too, as you're looking at this current budget on the expense side, and I've explained this to Judge, our new computer software system does a lot of automated coding especially of payroll match items. So when I say payroll match items, I'm talking about FICA, Medicare, retirement, and our health insurance. And then it also does some automated coding of employee withholdings. So when employees use Aflac and Cincinnati Life and the Mega Gym or whatever, all of that stuff, there's like some automatic coding that has gone into the initial setup of that software. And some of that's a little wonky. And I've been working with the software provider to fix that, and it's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be a long-term fix. There's also part of the layer of complication there is that we pay things out of different funds. So we pay payroll out of payroll funds, but it's coded to other funds, and the same with all of those matches and those deductions, and so it just makes it really intricate and complicated. So you may hear me come and talk to you a little bit about some solutions they have, the software company, to make them a little less complicated, and it might mean that we need to make a little bit of changes of this, how things are done, or how they look fund-wise, but it shouldn't change anything overall. But I say that to say that when you look at your expense, printout by fund, you might look at the judge's salary and say, okay, well, why is he at 55% instead of right at 50? Because this is literally half a year, and his is set by the state, so we know the exact amount. And so all of those match codings that I was telling you about, some of them are a little wonky, and so some of his FICA could be up there when it's normally supposed to be down on the line that says FICA. So that will eventually be fixed. Like I said, it'll take some time, and I sit with the software people for 6-7 hours sometimes, so my whole day discussing solutions and trying to reconcile and fix. So when you look at the expense lines just for payroll on this, keep in mind that, okay, the whole 56 for judge that says salary, some of that might be a little bit of his FICA too, but it's all payroll related. So if you took all those lines that were payroll related and added them all up, everything in the payroll should be there. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, we can always sit together one-on-one whenever you want to go down every single one, or look at it a different way that makes more sense to you.
Term you use, wonky, is that a formal accounting term?
Wonky.
W-O-N-K-Y?
Yep.
Okay.
Willy Wonka, wonky.
Are there any questions on that? All right, did you get, Tim, this is Tim's, did you get a copy of it? Is this the same one that you sent us?
No, it's updated. I just skimmed it over.
It's different. I was actually not making sure you include fringe, so I've had to change a couple of things to accomplish that.
So as far as us asking him to include fringe goes, normally he presents his budget, and it has, so the original one that he gave you, has he reimburses all of the clerks' salaries except for Dara, who is election, except for this year. It was changed mid-year, I believe in July or August, and he started reimbursing her as well. So he reimburses gross payroll. He does not reimburse the payroll matches that I just talked about, the FICA, the Medicare, the health insurance, the life insurance, and the retirement. It's always been part of the fiscal court's overall budget, and we've always paid that. So he doesn't pay it, but he turns over a excess fees, and then we still have things that are not included in that we pay. So I asked him to include his fringe benefits so that it would be more, I feel like that with it included in his budget gives a more accurate picture of what's really going on in that department. So if a taxpayer came and asked, okay, what's going on in this office? How is it ran? What's the budget like? What's the actual expenses like? we wouldn't just be able to hand the clerk's budget to the person and say, this is how it's ran. We'd also have to go back somewhere different and bring that information forward, that this is what fringe costs. And I just don't think that that is a clear picture for somebody doesn't have intricate knowledge of how our budget works. So I think for transparency and for a clearer picture, everything for one department should be all presented together. So that's why I asked for it to be presented that way. If the court doesn't want to approve it that way and they want to approve it a different way, that's entirely up to you all. I just thought that that's the best presentation method. And the form that I asked the fleet offices to use that sets deputies' maximums, and you can check if fringes are included or not. That form comes from DLG, and you have the option to choose fringes. I provided it to them with the fringes included because that's the preference for how I would like to see it. Whether you all want to do something different, again, that's entirely up to the fiscal court.
Well, and I think it's important to make it more of an accurate representation, because when you look at this, what was proposed, and if this is the same.
It's changed. The first proposal he had turning over a $240,000 excess fee, and that was with no calculations on fringe. So it looks like you've now included all the fringe, and the excess fee you have set at zero, right?
Yes. But, I think for the people that are watching at home, as well as some of these, we're talking about the county paying my fringe. And I just used the 44%, which is what it looks like this year. Fringe rate's 44%. So in 2019, my fringe rate would have been $262,000, and I turned in $283,000. The year before it would have been $258,000, and I turned in $283,000. The year before it would have been $264,000, and I turned in $277,000. So it's not like you guys are subsidizing my operation. It's just the fact that I wasn't paying the fringe directly when I reimbursed payroll. And it's fine to do that, not particularly, although next year is a difficult year because I've got a big project that I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to do some work in the vault, and it gives me no leeway when I'm reimbursing fringe. The year that we're in now, 2020, that I'm getting ready to give you an excess fee check. My fringe this year will be around $288. It'll be a little bit different because your payroll, your year is based on W-2 year. My year is based on work year. So December 31st payroll is always, I'm going to have it in 1 year, and you're going to have it in the next year. But still, even if it's $290, I looked this morning at my numbers, and my excess fees this year are going to be $425,000. So that's about $135,000 more. And if we're going to do this, what I would like for you guys to do, if we're going to use my budget where I pay fringe, let me set aside $90,000 of that $135,000. That way, kind of like Tony Soprano, you guys get to wet your beak. But I get $90,000 in the July 1 budget, your budget. You set aside $90,000 for me to do scanning in the vault, because I've generated $135,000 more this year than that I've cost you in fringe. So if you set aside that $90,000, then I can start my scanning project on July 1 and have that money available. Because now, if I have to say, well, I hope I'm going to have the fees, then by July 1, I may not know where I stand, because my money comes in monthly, and it's according to how people trade cars or how people buy property or whatever. So I may have to wait till October to where I feel comfortable, yes, I'm going to have the money to do this, and then I may not have the time. And then starting January 1, I go back to zero again. I give you all my money, and I start at zero, and I'm in the same situation. And I think that this project that I'm wanting to do, this scanning of deeds, I think it's important. And I think that that's what this money, and that's another thing that the people watching at home may not understand. The clerk's office operates off of fees that are collected by the county clerk's office. You know, the fiscal court doesn't write us a check. If you come in and you pay your car taxes, we take a little bit of that. If you come in and you record a deed or you buy a marriage license, we take a little bit of that. And that money is what we use to operate our office. And in this year, the 2020, we got a large fee increase that the County Clerks Association lobbied for, specifically for making improvements to the recording area, what we call the vault here in Marshall County, but it's the deed room, the recording room. And I'm wanting to use our digital records, only go back to 1982. And we've got, I wrote it down, we've got 190 deed books that are not part of the digital record, starting in 1982 back. And that's about 700 pages a piece, so that's about 133,000 pages of deeds that if we have a disaster, if this courthouse burns tomorrow, you know, we're going to be sitting here and saying, well, we know what happened in 1982. And we've never had money to do this, but that was specifically what this money was for. We have what's called a document storage fee that was added in this last bill. It's $10 a document, which has generated about $75,000 in this year we're in, that is specifically for document storage. And then we got increases in the recording fees as well. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't mind doing this, and all I'm doing is asking you to set aside money that I'm giving you anyway in next year's budget. So I've got the ability on July 1 to bid this project and start moving forward with it.
Tim, I got a question on your scanning. We have Laserfish, which is exactly what we did, what year was that, 16? We realized that scanning documents was important, so the county basically owns that software. I saw on your first budget proposal was $70,000 for the whole scanning process. And
well, I added 70,000. I had 20,000 in last year's budget, so I increased it by 70,000. So
yeah.
I think $112,000 was my total capital, and of that, probably 90,000 was imaging, and the rest of it was if I have to buy a copy machine or a shredder or something like that. Is
there any reason why you can't use Laserfish?
Yeah, we've got a software program. I mean, you guys know, it's basically it's indexed so that we can come down there and say who was the grantee and who was the grantor on this deed. It's specialized software. It's not something, and still it's going to be a manual process. It's going to be a process of getting this book down and opening it up and scanning those documents, sure, and then indexing those documents, every one of those documents saying, well, Kevin Sprague's, this property, he was the grantor, and then Monty Collins was the grantee, so we have to index that so that when they go to look at those deeds, they can actually find where those deeds are by name. So yeah, it's not as simple. It's not just getting an image of a document.
So that amount that you want to spend for the imaging project, it's not for software. You already have the software, and it's not for hardware. It's more for the time.
The process of 133,000 pages of deeds that I want to get into the system, as opposed to saying, if y'all come down there now and it's an old deed or you're wanting to follow up on something, you have to go to the book to look at that one. You can't look at it in software because it's not digitized, because there's never been enough money to do this. And this year we have the opportunity, because of this bill that the legislature passed specifically for this purpose, that we've got the ability to do this. I've got 2 years left in my term. I guess we've all got 2 years left in our term, but I've got 2 years left in my term, which may be more significant than y'all's. And this is something that I really want to get done. I really want to start this process, and I think it's difficult. Paying fringe is probably not a big deal, but you can see too that I've had a $20,000 play there, $20,000 play. So if I start this project on July 1 and say, I'm going to start scanning documents, I'm going to bid this, and I'm going to give this a bid, and I have no idea. It's kind of like what you were talking about, the 911 guy. I have no idea what this will actually cost because I haven't put together specs and asked somebody to bid on it, but I know it's going to be expensive. And then, you know, with COVID the way it is, with our economy the way it is, then everything drops off the cliff in August. I look like I'm doing good in July, and then in August, everybody quits buying cars. Everybody quits buying property, so I'm not recording deeds, and I'm not collecting usage tax from people buying cars. And then I'm to the situation where I'm committed to paying this fringe. Y'all are not going to help me where, you know, if I budget $240 for excess fees, I'm expecting that I'm going to pay quite a bit more than that in excess fees, but it gives me the opportunity to be wrong. And I'm not going to have the opportunity to be wrong. So if you guys budget that in your budget, then I don't have to worry about being wrong. I've got that money sitting there. I know on July 1 that I can start this project and hopefully complete it. And since y'all are on a fiscal year, that gives me a whole year from July 1 to accomplish a lot of work, you know? So that's what I'm asking for. And like I said, to reiterate, this is not money I'm asking for out of, this is money that I'm going to write you a check for in February. I'm going to write you a $425,000 or so check, and you're going to spend $288,000 or $290,000 on that paying the fringe that I incurred this year. So that other $135,000, y'all are still going to make a little money. Okay? I'm trying to be good to you here, but this would help. This would simplify my life immeasurably if I knew on July 1 I could start this project and not have to worry about, well, am I going to collect the fees? Am I going to be overspent at the end of the year? You know, if the economy drops off a cliff. So that's my proposal.
Tim, I've got one question. The plats, are they going to be scanned and?
Yes, and I've got all the plats scanned now. And I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot all about that. But yeah, that was part of the project that I had enough fees at the end of last year to do plats. But we're going to have to spend some money in the vault at some point because we're running out, and you guys know as well as anybody, I've got plat cabinets everywhere, and I've got to the point where my next plat cabinet is going to be in the walkway. And about the only thing we can do is move, there's lights and air conditioning duct over against this north wall. Or if I start setting plat cabinets on top of plat cabinets, it's about the only thing I can do, but I'm gonna have to move ductwork to do that. And, you know, I don't know, I'm not actually, probably that was next year is what I was thinking about, because I think maybe I've got room for one more plat cabinet if we scoot some stuff around. But, you know, whoever is clerk after the next election, this is going to be something that's going to be critical. And I mean, I've got enough room for a lot of books, and I think that probably whoever is clerk after the next election, mortgages are something that we can do digital, that we can get rid of the books. And probably that's something that we will need to transition to, although we probably won't save any money because you have to make sure that you microfilm everything every year. You've got to get that done and get it stored. But we've probably got room for books. But plats, you know, we get, it seems like a ton of plats, probably a lot more than any of our surrounding counties. It seems like we get a ton of plats. And they're so bulky and they take up so much room. And, you know, I had hoped, I had thoughts that when the last of the card players died that I might try to take over the card playing room, but now the veterans guys had moved in there, so I'm not sure where I could move plats, you know. But glad you brought that up because I forgot the issue I've got with plats as well.
Tim, on your original proposal, you had a 2% raise, and with that, the retirement increase, which was retirement increase only, is that changed? So there's still a 2% raise, and it doesn't. And I think that's where, when it's not an accurate representation of your office, that's thrown in the court's lap to understand those increases. The 2% raise increase is almost 18,000. And then the retirement only, which we know the retirement's going to be going up, is close to 20,000. Have you had time to look at this as far as when we looked at it, this one that he's presented this morning?
I've skimmed it.
Does that change? Do you see anything that changes? Because our concern was the original budget that you presented that didn't have the FICA and retirement, that if you did that, that there would potentially be, for the court, monies owed that we would have to cover.
Yeah, and at the time, I had no intention of asking you to set aside the $90,000, but I really felt like that, and I really feel like I've done this is my 11th budget, and I feel like that if you look at my history, I've done a pretty good job of making sure that the court is not on the hook for my money, and I knew that this year I was probably going to turn over $120 or so thousand in addition, so I felt like that I probably was due a little leeway because of that. And perhaps I'm not due any leeway, but I felt like that I've got a 10-year history of running this office and trying my best to make sure that the court is held harmless. And
Well, just so that you know, when we were reviewing this, the General Assembly, as you know, did increase the fees for the clerk's office. So the taxpayers did get hit with a fee increase. And then at the same time, when we were comparing the increase with retirement and the 2% raise, and seeing how the numbers were going to affect our bottom line, and as a taxpayer, when I see the actuals presented from the fee offices, and just like say 15, 16, 274,000 excess fees, and I think this was put together before what we got this morning. And then when you get down to the actual expenses, it left about $12,000. But none of that shows what we were just talking about as far as the FICA retirement. And we all know that retirement's going up. We still have 17% combined between hazard and non-hazard that's going to be affecting our bottom line. So that's why it's important, I felt, as we communicated with this budget that you presented, is that we put it all in there so that, and I understand your concerns as a fee office trying to juggle some unknowns, but every one of us have that same issue. But putting it in there to where the individual can see exactly what your operations cost the taxpayer. Does that make sense? I mean, that's that way. It's not so much to make it. We've got two offices basically. You got the fee office and then the fiscal court, and we're trying to make a presentation to the taxpayer as far as that they can see where their money's going. And for me, this year with a fee increase from the General Assembly. And it was a significant fee increase in certain cases. When we added this up and we saw that we would potentially be caught a couple $1,000s, subsidizing your office. To me, and I know you said earlier that you've never had the monies. I think it was 20 years, if I'm not mistaken, the last time that there was a fee increase from the General Assembly. Why wouldn't we just wait to see how this year pans out? I mean, have you thought about that, or I guess
we know how last year panned out. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm asking for money that's already in my bank account right now. It's just I don't get to keep it. Unlike you guys, y'all always have carryover money. If you've got $4 million in the bank, we'd have $4 or $5 million. At June 30th, on July 1, I still had $4 or $5 million in the bank. County clerk, I've got $425,000 in the bank whenever I pay all the taxes and everything that are due in January. But I don't get to carry that over. I don't get to spend that money. I have to give it all to you. So that money's already there. And I think this project that I'm wanting to do is worthy of spending that money. So it's not like I'm counting on next year, which is what I would be doing if I'm not asking you guys to say, you know, that $425,000 of excess fees that I turn over, take your fringe out of it. Take the $288,000 or $290,000 or $300,000. Set me aside $90,000 or so that I can start this project so I know I've got this money. You know, if we put it off to next year, then that money's gone. Y'all will definitely forget about that I gave you that $90,000 or $100,000. And then what happens if I do have a bad year and only, you know, this year I pay all my fringe in 2021 and I turn over $50,000 or $60,000 in excess fees. So then I'm sitting at looking at, well, then do I want to do it? And I'm running out of time too. I'm running out of time if I'm going to do this project. So I don't know. I just think that I think it's fair that yes, we will pay our way next year. We will pay our way next year, but the money that we've already got in the bank this year, that's over and above what we will need to pay our way, let's spend that on improving the clerk's office. Let's spend it for why the legislature increased those fees, was to help us in the recording area in the vault. So, because, you know, if we did, and nobody wants to think about a courthouse burning, but if this courthouse did burn, you know, it would be a disaster, particularly when you think about property records and you think, well, 82, that's a long time ago. But I'm not so sure that when my parents died, they didn't have a deed, their house wasn't deeded in 1961 or something, you know. Lots of people out there, and then there's lots of reasons to look at old deeds when you're selling property today. There's lots of reasons to go back to say, yes, this is where it is. Again, you know, I talked to a guy just the other day that was talking about where he had to go back through like 5 different sales on a piece of property in a circuit court case because somewhere where he'd sold this piece of property, the lines got screwed up and they had to go back years and years and years to the original deed where he sold it to actually identify what the correct lines were because the subsequent deeds had screwed those lines up. So these are important records. They're not just, it's not just something I'm thinking, well, this would be a good idea, we ought to do it. It's something that I'm passionate about, that I really want to do, and I'd like to accomplish in the next 2 years. So I'd like to.
Outside, and I understand that, outside of what we're doing currently today, does it work? When somebody comes down to the vault, I mean, what they're doing today, if they got to go beyond 1982, I mean, is it set up now to where they can get the information that they need?
Oh, yeah, there's a manual index, and then there's books that you can pull off the counter. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like everything else. I mean, Erica could do accounting like that. When I first started doing accounting, I had a general ledger that I wrote numbers in by hand, so, you know.
Right.
We still have those in the basement. We still have those in the basement. We keep those forever.
You're pretty young enough that you probably didn't do that, but I'm old enough, I did that. I've kept a general ledger by hand, so.
In looking at the bigger picture with our budget and the needs that are out there, just 2 things that I can see that has been presented, one for years, is the water. And every dollar, you know, we really do need to look at everybody's budget. And that's why we're doing this, is because we've got people in this county that still don't have access to water. And getting a rough estimate of what that's going to take, it's over $10 million. That figure has been discussed for years. The court never really grabbed the bull by the horn, in my opinion, to just make that happen. Now we're talking about broadband. Just to get broadband to every doorstep And this is a discussion that's at the federal level, the state level, some of the association meetings that we've been on, representatives have come in and they've spoken about it. Just in Marshall County is an estimate of about $26 million. And that's just two things. And to me, broadband to some is considered essential. Water is definitely essential. But when we start looking at the dollars, and I understand that, it's maybe a passionate thing that you want to see done before you leave to make it digitized beyond 82. I get that. But I want you to understand, and all the other elected officials to understand, is that, you're just looking at your office when we have to look at the entire issues that are taking place in the county. Ways of, and again, the General Assembly increased the fees on the taxpayers. And if it's something that getting our documents to where they need to be as far as digitized, I've seen clerks' offices across the state with this increase give pay raises. Now, some of those communities may have needed that, but I don't know, did your association lobby for pay raises? I mean, and that's a fair question, I think, for the taxpayer. I don't know.
Well, I figure sometime in January, you're going to get a pay raise and I'm going to get a pay raise.
Right, and we don't have any control of that. I mean,
but still, we get it. And, I didn't run for fiscal court, so I don't get a decision I don't get a vote on the decisions you guys make as what you do. Y'all probably spend 15 minutes a year thinking about the county clerk's office. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about the county clerk's office. That's what I'm paid to do. And yes, it was a fee increase on the taxpayers, but the way it's stated is these are user-supported documents. There's no general levy on taxpayers that pay to keep the documents in the vault safe and secure, that keep them scanned, to keep the employees there so that there's somebody there to hand you a book if you need it. Those are paid for by the users, and the current users, because we can't go back to the people in 1915 that recorded this deed, they're gone. So somebody that records a deed today, that user is charged for maintaining those documents. And yeah, I'm sure that y'all got a ton of needs. Don't doubt it at all. And I mean, you can talk about me giving my people a pay raise, but I think that's a priority. If I was on the fiscal court, that would be one of my priorities for the county employees, would be giving pay raises. I think I think I've got a good set of employees, and I don't think that, and when I say 2%, I'm probably not going to give probably going to give whatever we get. Whatever the inflation turns out to be is probably what I'm going to give. But, I have no idea what that's going to be. But I think that this project is important to the county clerk's office, and this money was generated from fees that these user-supported documents, that's where this money comes from. So yeah, I'm passionate about this project, but I think it's a very important project to the county too. And if we have a courthouse fire tomorrow, everybody in the county is going to think it was important. If we never have a courthouse fire, everybody will be like you and say, well, we could have got the book out. But if we have a fire and we don't have those books anymore, if we don't have those records digitized, then everybody's going to, and these two guys are going to.
There'll be no real estate closings.
Yeah, so, I don't know how to argue my point other than say, yeah, I think it's important. Do I want to weigh my $90,000 against your $10 million need for water lines? I have no idea. But that's a decision you guys have to make. If y'all need to increase something to pay for water lines, if it's important for the county and it's important for the taxpayers, then present it to the taxpayers and say, this is what we need to do.
I think there's been no bigger advocate for laying water lines in the county than myself, but I also believe this is a reasonable proposal from the county clerk. I think it's an important project, and, the people of Marshall County has entrusted Tim York to be the county clerk since 2011. I trust his judgment on this. I think it's a reasonable proposal. That's just my opinion.
How much, Tim, because I was looking at this, how much of your budget goes to the state, or what you bring in?
How much of my budget goes to the state?
How much?
Ton of it, I mean, because we get 3% of usage tax. The usage tax is a big number. I don't even know how much it is. So, the bulk of the usage tax goes. And then ad valorem tax, part of that goes to the state, but the biggest people there, the school board will get a ton of that. Y'all will get some of that. Every fire district will get some of that. The health department, the hospital, all this, the bulk of the money, most of my budget.
We figured about 6.5.
Most of my budget really doesn't, I don't know exactly why it's set up the way it is, because we should be budgeting basically the amount that I keep, the clerk fees, and then how I spend those clerk fees. The rest of it's going to happen no matter what. If I get $1 in usage tax, I'm going to send 97 cents of that to the state. If I get $1 in ad valorem tax, I'm going to send 94 cents of that to the state, or 96 cents of that to the state. So, that's out of our control, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
We don't get to, I don't get to tell the state, well, I think I'm gonna keep some of your money this year, it's the same reason I constantly have people asking me why I'm charging a fee for credit cards. Well, if I didn't, that would probably end up costing the clerk's office $40,000 a year that I can't take that money out of the payment I make to you, the sheriff's office gets some money from us for delinquent tax. Y'all get money from us from ad valorem tax and deed tax. The state gets money from us from usage tax. I can't take money from that to pay that credit card fee. We offer credit cards as, so that if that's all you've got, you can pay your bill, but it's not like I can pay that fee. The credit card companies are going to get their fee one way or the other, and then the county clerk's office can't afford to pay that fee, so.
I think it was when we looked at that, when I say we came up with about 6.5, that was just, because we don't get to see those books, we just see the numbers that are presented, but that's roughly out of a $10 million fee office, that's what we came up with.
I think about 7. Yeah.
About 7.
I have a question.
The rest of it goes to y'all and the school board and there's a ton of money that goes to places other than the state.
I have a question. As we go into next year's budget talks on throughout the following months, I'll kind of be really talking on us starting plans for planned obsolescence and things needing to be replaced and preemptive repairs, and so that we're not reactionary like how we have to come up with money right now to fix the roof. We should be planning for years in advance for that sort of thing. I don't know how your rules work. If you wanted to plan for a future, let's say some other future project comes up, are you allowed to carry money over like that in your own budget? No. Okay, they keep you from doing that.
If I have $1 basically on January 1, it's not actually January 1 because the money we're collecting in December will actually be dispersed to taxing entities in January. And then we have to reconcile the bank account, make sure. But basically, whatever I collect on December 31st, after we've dispersed all that, then if I've got $1, it comes to you guys.
So really, if there's going to be any carryover, like planning that goes over several years, it would need to be on the fiscal court side of the budget, not on the clerk's side of the budget.
That's why I'm asking for this money, because I can't carry, even though I've generated a lot more excess fees than I need to pay fringe this year, but I can't carry that money over. I can't spend that money. And it would have been impossible to spend it this year. Well, for one thing, at the end of May, I was $700,000 low in collections this year, but then it turned around after we opened back up. And for another thing, we probably didn't want anybody in there. We didn't want a lot of more people in there. We've tried to limit the number involved because in the basement, doesn't have any windows, the airflow's probably not very good, so we don't want an extra couple of, 3 people in there scanning documents and doing indexing if we can help it when all this COVID stuff's going on. So it would have been just about impossible to have started that project this year anyway.
So logistically, the only way to accomplish what the request is this needs, he would need to change this.
Well, to accomplish his
reflect.
request, his budget the way it is would be fine, but we would need to make a commitment to
Which we
allow him to carry over his excess fees from this year into next year.
Well, actually, I think probably what y'all need to do is just, in your July 1, where your, what would that be, 2022 budget, FY 22 budget, you'd need to agree to budget $90,000 in that budget for the use of the county clerk for this imaging.
I agree with you, but we're talking, that's a 6 months. That's not really a, we can all commit
Well, I guess another
to
option would be.
right now. The option that I'm talking about is that, and again, that could still change too,
Right.
is to show a $90,000 loss. Or whatever you want to say, show a $90,000 subsidy
In this budget.
in this budget.
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
I think a third option would be.
That could still change between now and July, but it would be in your request.
Right.
Right now, that $90,000 is outside your request, and you're really leaving it open to 6 months from now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know you don't want to do it, I understand.
Well, is it something that you can bid for? The court can bid for to find out the exact dollars as far
Yeah,
as?
I mean, I think we'll have to set it up. Of course, if we bid it, we'll want to be ready to move. I don't think we'll want to bid it 6 months in advance, but I think that we can bid this project and see where it's at. And I may be wrong, but I'm thinking that this is probably not a 1-year project. This is probably going to be a 2-year project. And however you guys want to do it, like I said, I expect probably to have some checks that haven't cleared at the end of January. Normally, this is the way it is. I'll probably be turning a check over to you guys sometime in the middle of February, is what I expect.
So a third option is when Tim turns over that check in February, we're only budgeted to receive 210. So if he's going to be turning a check over to us for 400,000, we could amend the budget right then, amend the receipts in to reflect that, and amend the expenditures to wherever you all want it. If your choice is to cover the scanning, he could potentially start this year. If you don't end up starting this year, and it's not till next year, at least it is on the expense side of our budget already this year. Does that make sense?
Anyway, again, vaccines and stuff, I think the reason I was shooting for July 1 is because I hope that COVID will be a thing of the past by July 1, and maybe we can start that project then. I think it'd be difficult to start it before then, maybe. And I don't know how long, I don't know about timeline on any of this. I know scanning plats they were down there for 3.5 weeks or something scanning plats, which was a much smaller project than this was. And I ended up spending about $20,000 on that, so much simpler because indexing of the plats was much simpler, it's not as many names and having to sit there and read a document, all those documents, that's going to be, I have no idea what to expect as far as what this is going to cost, but I'd like to start in 82 and move back as much as we can. And like I said, I've got 2 years left in this term, so I may not be able to accomplish this. I'm not sure, but I'd like to get it started.
Well, is there a way that we can try to find out what the actual, cost would be, or what the project, if it's going to be a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year?
Yeah, I can ask.
I mean,
I can ask for like a rough estimate. I don't think anybody would want to do a lot of work, but maybe there's people that do this could give me a rough estimate on it.
Yeah, I mean, we can get requests for proposals or just something to give us an idea of what the actual cost is going to be. The court, well, you know what the need is. I mean, you can just put that out and see what you get back as far as different vendors. How many vendors do you know of that are out there that?
I don't know, and it gets difficult too because, you know, the software we've got is proprietary, and at least a portion of this will have to be with them getting these indexable documents into that system. So you can have pretty much anybody that is capable of scanning these kind of documents do the scanning, but as far as the indexing is concerned, then that's the part where you're probably going to have to just about deal with the one what brung you, you know, because otherwise, if you rethink the whole thing, I think it's probably going to end up. There's 2 or 3 companies that do this here in Kentucky, and we use DRMS out of Paducah, and there's a company called Software Management, and then there's Cott Industries that does this. But probably if they bid on the indexing part, then they're going to be wanting to install their software here, which would probably be another $30,000, $40,000 of changing over from what we've got as far as software, unless they were just so excited about getting their foot in the door in Marshall County that they ate that cost to be here for the next 20 years or whatever, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't know. You can't ever tell about people, and most people like what we've got. Most of the lawyers seem to like what we've got, as opposed to, because I think software management is maybe in McCracken or Graves. I don't know. There's different counties that got different things, and most people seem to like what we've got, but I'm not opposed to changing. But
maybe it's because I got used to it, but I love what you got.
yeah, there's a lot of lawyers that say that, particularly lawyers that go to other counties surrounding us that like what. So I don't know. But again, yeah, it may be whatever you're used to is always what they like. So.
Does anybody else got any questions?
I have another question. I'm full of questions. Not related to the scanning, but back on what you have budgeted for your salaries. I know that you said that you do have budgeted in the 2% raise as far as base salaries, and I did a quick little add up here, and it looks like you also budgeted for the fringe for that 2% increase and the retirement part as well. I know that when we had emailed back and forth, you had said half a year on DARA. So did you only plan on having DARA in your budget for calendar year 21 for half a year, and then her switch back to us? Or I wanted just for clarity's sake to know how this was presented.
I moved her on, I think it was July the 15th, but what I was saying was, I'm on a calendar year budget, you're on a fiscal year budget, so my calendar year budget only reflects a half a year expense of that, is what I was saying. So I look at what I spent last year and think that, well, I need to add a half a year of the election deputy for next year, because I've got a half a year in what I've spent, but I've got a half a year that I didn't have. Does that make sense?
Yes, so you're telling me that the expenses you have here is she's in here? Okay, for the whole year?
Yes.
All right, yeah, that was my only question.
Saving y'all another 40,000 or whatever it is on your budget.
Anybody else got any questions? Yep. Appreciate it, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
going, just to bring to your attention if, what Erica was talking about, if we took, and we went back to 16, all the way back to 16, 17, with the unexpended excess fees, and you're looking at close to 70-something thousand dollars. That's an opportunity missed to where the court could have done exactly what we were talking about today, allocating those dollars for a project like that. And that's the mindset I think that the court needs to get into, is these projects, and we have many. The only way we're really going to tackle these projects that we have in front of us, we've got a meeting on the 11th to talk about a capital plan, is to put plans in place and to commit to those plans over a period of time. So, does anybody need a break, recess, or anything before we go in the sheriff's
Move
budget?
for a recess.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in, well, let's see. We need to make, we're not an action item. We can recess, yeah. All right, I think we got everybody. Go ahead and get back to it. Let's see. And Erica, you got the one that was sent last night? All right. You've got the, should have the budget, or the request from the sheriff in front of you for the deputy and assistants. Everybody got that?
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions?
So same thing, you asked the same thing of him that you asked of.
Right,
Yeah.
to include,
Tim.
to have the salaries include all of the fringe.
And so that, the only difference from the other day, what was printed out and this, is the fringe is included in that. Okay.
If nobody's got any questions, I had Erica put together just a historical subsidy list, and going back all the way to 2015, as far as the receipts and the total salary, other, and then the school resource officer and expenditures. 2015, it was about 414,000. 16, 17 was 986,000. 17, 18 was $1,083,000. 18, 19 was 1.3 million, and actuals of 2019 and 20 was $1,055,000. If you were to look at the receipts for ABC in those years, 16, 17, ABC receipts were 329,000, and expenditures 263,000. 17, 18 years, 393, almost 394 receipts with 230,000 expenditures. 18, 19, 491,000 receipts with expenditures about 373,000. And actuals for 19, 20, 321,000 for receipts and expenditures, 480,000. This current year, for 2021, receipts budgeted 1.8 million. The actual subsidy is 1.3 million. Alcohol, 428,000 for both receipts and expenditures. Because the previous budget years, we had actually in the budgets, the line items The difference you'll see is there's not any line items in the budget. We just gave the sheriff's office the subsidy, allowing him to, manage those monies how he saw fit. With what's being proposed on the maximum amount for deputies and assistants, it does include the insurance, health insurance, employer match for retirement. That the same thing with the clerk's office was added.
On the insurance, I didn't know what each individual officer had plan-wise, so I just planned that the 29 officers were family insurance and they smoked. So that's inflated quite a bit. I mean, technically, I guess everybody could quit and we hire a bunch of smokers and that's got a family tomorrow, but I think this year we're budgeted at like 240 for insurance.
Yeah,
So
it's close to 250
That's
for
one of that
insurance and
one's-
HRA.
It's up, I
So
think
yeah,
it's up over
you're way over on
430
that.
something, yeah. 467. The way our subsidy works, it's much different than what Tim York's is. When you talk about a fee office, when you talk about the sheriff's office, the way the fee structure is set up is a lot of times very misunderstood because my statutory duty is not to perform law enforcement. I'm not statutorily required to perform any of the duties that basically eats up the bulk of our budget. So I guess sometime 30, 40 years ago, 50, you all got together, whoever you all was at that time, and said it would be cheaper to subsidize my office than to create your own police agency, because we know state police can't do it anymore. They've got 17 troopers for 13 counties, I think. So they do miraculous work with what they got. They're just not there like they used to be in our county. So that instead of, there's no way that, in the way I based this budget off of, there's no way that you all could go out and start a police department for the $1.3 million or the 1.1 or the 1.05. So instead, really, for the taxpayer purpose, instead of you all subsidizing me, I'm using my fees to subsidize the citizens to help create a police department and a law enforcement agency at a discount. That's what has been going on. I know he gets hung up on the subsidy, and it does cost OTA monies. But this right here, what I've submitted, gets you pretty close to what it would cost to, not counting, this is just salaries and assuming you guys kept cars and all that, it would get you close to what it would cost you to run on a yearly basis, which I'm sure they calculated that during the whole school resource officer conversation last year. So that's where we're at right now. We're a very large department now. We've grown by 10 officers, just school resource officers in the last 2 years. I've heard that it's been said somewhere close to this room, why is there only 16 units out when you have 47 deputies? We have 9 deputies that are court security officer deputies. Well, all they can do is work inside that courthouse. Other than serving a warrant or serving a mental warrant, they don't have any arrest powers outside of that courthouse. So that's 9 people, so that skews numbers. We have 11 school resource officers. We know how valuable they are. And anytime they work the road, we got criticized for it last year, if you all remember. So we have those guys work nothing but that, and then we have one of them do the training. So that's 20 officers of our 47 employees that don't work patrol, they don't work the road. The bulk of our patrol is we're down to 15. We lost a spot last year's budget. It's usually 16 officers. We lost the one last year, so it's usually 5 detectives and 16 officers is what we had got up to 2 years ago, and then we lost this position last year. So is this budget more than it was last year? Absolutely. But the number one rule of government The number one responsibility of government is public safety. If we're going to sink money into certain parts of public safety and borrow money for certain parts of public safety, it does no good for that money to be spent if you don't have quality that's actually going out and taking care of the calls. And that's what we've done is the last few years is we've fallen behind. Paducah Police, McCracken County Sheriff's Office, their fiscal court just raised an insurance. They started an insurance tax subsidy, whatever you want to call it, and they raised their fees for the real estate side of it to help cover sheriff's office salaries and the jail's salaries. So they recognize the importance of that. I don't think we have to. I think last month he told you when we went from 4.2 to 4.7, that $500,000 increase went to reserves that none of us knew about. So I believe we don't have to raise the taxes. I don't think that we have to raise insurance subsidies to do this. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road. And, we've done a lot, and I know you don't think that you said that, but you told Monty that about a month ago. Those $500,000 went to reserves.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute, what?
4.2 to 4.7.
Yes.
Are you talking about the occupational tax?
Yes. Yes.
The increase?
Yes. You said you put that into reserves.
I
That's
can't,
what you told Monty.
I know you're looking at me because you want me to remember. I'm trying to remember what we did with that, that 5 went to.
Maybe you didn't mean to say that,
can't
but that's what you
recall.
said about 3 meetings ago.
Well, first off, don't speak for me. I will stand firm with what I say. But the increase from 4.2 to 4.7, this court raised it to 4.7.
I know that.
So,
I don't understand what the,
do you know what he's talking about?
I think you might be talking about the $500,000 insurance.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what,
I
the
think
court
that's-
specifically made a motion
I think that's what
to
you're,
put that in the budget, not the OTA. The OTA, we put at 4.2 million as far as our receipts.
okay.
The-
Yeah, I
the
think
four- No,
I
no,
think you're
no.
talking
The 4.7 was what the court raised.
The point I'm
I
making
didn't-
is we
I
don't
don't-
have to raise taxes
I
to do this.
don't make that decision on my own. And I know I never had a conversation with him talking about putting any occupational tax in the reserves with
I'll
$500,000.
go back and look, but that's what I heard.
Well,
I think it's that insurance.
and it was actually
We might have been talking about
495, if
that.
I believe, because it came in right at the end of the fiscal year. And the question was how we were going to put that into the budget.
Fire insurance.
And it was a specific motion by the commissioner, Spraggs, to put it into the budget. And that's what we did. And
What is your feeling about this budget?
we're not done talking about.
Okay,
the
I know
fact-
you're upset.
I didn't. Oh, yeah. We're here to talk about
What is your
this.
feeling about this
we're-
budget?
We're here to talk about this.
Yes.
So, when people speak for me, and there's a lot of people out there speaking on my behalf with hearsay, I'm gonna correct it.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming that's what it is, because you and I never had a conversation about $500,000 into any line item.
No, I'm assuming that's what you're, I think.
It was like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was in a I can't remember what the discussion exactly was about when that came up, but I believe we're talking about the insurance, but regardless.
Now we're hung up. I'm sorry.
Yes.
My apologies. We're going to have to talk about this for the next 30 minutes instead of.
No,
I'm going to get the actual minutes of the motion
Yeah,
to speak
I
for
know, I
itself.
understand.
The one thing I can't stand is for people speaking on my behalf on hearsay. Guys, I don't have a
Not hearsay,
problem.
I was sitting here.
I don't have a
If I
problem.
misunderstood it, I will apologize, but
Okay,
Uh,
but I don't have a problem
that's not
standing
hearsay.
firm.
That's not what hearsay is.
So continue on. Whatever you're saying.
I asked you what your thoughts were on this budget.
I'll get to my thoughts.
If I may, I do recall,
Just hold on. You were giving a presentation of your budget to the court.
The last thing I said is this is what it would be if you had to do your own police department. We're trying to be competitive. The last 2 years, we've been lucky to be the new thing in town, to be able to retain officers. People wanted to come here. And, that's not always going to happen. Just like I told the guys yesterday, I'm not running again. We don't know what's going to happen down the road, who's going to be the next sheriff, what's going to happen down the road. And you figure last year we got nothing for cost of living, which other counties did it, but I get why we didn't do it. But the insurance went up 3%. The year before, we got 1.25%. And let's look at the cost of living. I mean, if we do an actual cost of living, it needs to be 5 or 6% across the board. Lumber's double, homes are up, used vehicles are at an all-time high. I mean, the guys right now are working for less than they've ever worked for in their entire life. Let's talk about the retirement. Let's go back to 2012. The retirement was 37%. So you look at that, and 2012-13, it was 37.6. 2013-14, 35.7. And then it keeps declining until we got to 2018 and 19. So the retirement has gone up, but it's gone up an average of 1% over the last 9 years. It's gone up 9% from 9 years ago. So, I know that this court just got here 2 years ago, so the failure to plan, can't be placed on this court. But I think these are very reasonable salaries. They're very reasonably compared to other agencies because we have to compete with other law enforcement agencies. If I hire Justin Lamb off the street, it's 12 months before I can use you. By the time I get you hired, put you through the academy, and train you to where I have to be competitive and try to get the guy that works at, another police agency that I can come in, train for 2 weeks, and put on the road. We spend $35,000 to $45,000 a year training a guy if we hire him off the street and we don't really get anything for that return. So we have to be competitive in our salaries, especially in our senior officers. 10 to 20-year officers is where we see the biggest, we start to fall off. We're decently competitive in that 1 to 10-year officer range. So you'll see that their increases from what we make now is not near as much as you'll see the 10 to 20-year officer range. And those, because I'll take, for instance, our chief deputy makes, mid-50s. A chief deputy at, a number 2 at Paducah makes about 90. A captain at Paducah makes about 80. A sergeant at Paducah makes about 70. And, we're not even touching those numbers. We can't even come close to those numbers, even in this. And another thing I based this salary off of was the 911 proposal that was submitted with the ordinance for the fees. It had the number 2 officer or the assistant director at $65,000. That's about what I put Tim at. It had a frontline supervisor at $59,000. So that's what I put for my captains, and my sergeants are probably a little less than that. So it's very comparable to what we have already approved based on history for the 911 budget. Now, I know we had to implement a fee to do that. In looking at that $84 fee, it's a pretty significant increase when my taxes are only $94 a year on my real estate. Adding $84 to it is quite a big jump. I get that, but we don't have to do that for this. I realize my office is larger. So if you shoot a bullet and you're an inch left at 25 yards, you're going to be a foot and a half left at 200 yards. So when we move numbers a small bit, the bottom number does move more than it would be if, when you give a treasurer a raise, or if you give, somebody in a 2 or 3 man department a raise. Those numbers aren't alarming. It's a couple dollars an hour or whatever it is, like you were talking about, making special projects even them up. Those numbers aren't alarming. If we start moving, with 47 employees, those numbers do look large.
So what's the actual, do we have a percentage increase? Like he was mentioning,
I'm thinking in
2%.
total, it's
I know it's not the same because you're not.
Right.
It's different
Yeah.
people, but as far as the total, one year versus the next,
You talking about total budget, or you talking about deputies?
Yeah, the deputy hire, the
The
actual
deputy hire, the
amount.
3,952, is about 550,000 more than it would be this year. You count raises and then the retirement increase.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. So that's if you did, so if you would have been asked, I guess, to do this same, do it the same way last year. I guess that's the thing I'm having a hard time with now that we have this figure, because the last time, the last figure that you sent, or, the one that you presented a couple weeks ago, it was basically the same or less.
That's salaries.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the same one that was approved last year, and I haven't talked about that much, is this being a fee pool office, I'm not calendar year. I'm July to July with you all.
Right.
So this one, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. The only reason I have to do this is because I'm a fee office.
Yeah.
Like last year's, we actually set it at 2,619, and this is at 2,491. So it's a little less than what we approved last year, but we just didn't pursue the pay increases when COVID hit. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, the actual versus the January approval were two totally different
Yes.
amounts.
Yeah. Even if this is approved today, it doesn't mean anything as opposed to the July budget, other than I can't go over this amount.
I have a question. So those salary increases that you're talking about, they are in this that you sent out last night? They're already in here?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then on your vacation note, it has Lee's 40-hour vacation
Yes.
carryover. So are you going to do some vacation
Well, that's
cash outs?
one of the things I wanted to talk about with some of the CARES money. I know we had a lot of discussion last year about how much comp time everyone had and how much vacation. I think it's, what, 250 or 300,000?
It's a lot, and
dollars.
but it's across the board, so we would
Right.
need to,
Right.
if we were going to
Mine,
allow it for
to
one,
pay
we need to make
everyone
plans
out-
for everybody.
Yeah, to pay everyone out and leave them 40 hours vacation time, it would cost $180,000 for my office. So that's why I put that in there. And I think that would be a good use of CARES funds to get that liability down. It was their backs that we made that money off of anyway, to be honest.
Okay, I have
the ones
another
out there
question. You didn't include fuel in your enterprise fleet
Mm-hmm.
amounts, and those are included in the way your budget's set up this year, so why are you wanting to change that up, or?
They're not,
No,
no.
We did not include that in the fiscal court line. Your all's is 130,000-ish a year, ours is 150-ish a year, so that's 280-ish together, and based on what Brad's told me, and we only budgeted for our portion of that. Your portion was in with the sheriff's
Of what?
lump sum amount.
Is that why you moved it to one line item?
The line item is all lumped together because that was how it was voted on.
I see now why they moved it to one line item.
I mean, it gets paid regardless next year.
What
I
do you-
guess the other option would be to keep it in here and then just the subsidy be more.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm just
yeah.
curious if you had a preference on why you wanted it not in with that.
No. I was under the impression that enterprise and fuel was.
Now,
on the-
fuel is a different story. I believe
the
that it
county
is all
line.
budgeted together this year, none of your fuel is supposed to be coming out of your lump item, lump
I
sum.
thought that's what you were just talking about, fuel. You were talking about
Yeah, that's from
enterprise.
enterprise.
It's two. Enterprise is one, fuel is one. But with the fuel, like, we can separate those expenses out within our WEX account, so we can always look at those or those individual numbers per department. But we budgeted all the fuel costs.
Fuel in the
that-
fiscal court.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, okay.
The enterprise is what we did not budget all in one
Okay,
line in
I
the
thought you
fiscal
just
court.
said fuel, so, okay.
And the sheriff's fuel is about 40,000 this year. Does that sound about right?
I
And-
factored, because you guys probably started using it more in July, I think. You let your tank run out and then.
This is pretty close to the beginning of the fiscal year.
So I based those numbers on like,
Because we used to budget 100, but the gas is not as much as it usually is.
I mean, which I think we're making out better.
For now.
on the side using WEX anyway.
Then tanks.
So, but yeah, that's how we got to that number.
So these are documents, the documents you just gave us on sheriff's office's wages, the historical, and then
Right. you
this
have-
is just,
you have
this
this
is from the approved budget.
This right here is only actuals from previous years. That's all that's here. This is not a budget. This is actual
Oh.
results.
Okay.
Actual expenses for 16 to 20. That's what's
This
here.
does not have 2021, what we approved on it, does it?
No.
Yeah, this
What
is
we approved on the
actual.
budget on 2021 is on the one that says sheriff historical subsidy in the upper left-hand corner, that shows the subsidy, how it's changed over the years. And on the right-hand side, you'll see budgeted 2021, and that the subsidy that we budgeted this year was 1.314. And then to the right of that, I took what I think that you thought you were trying to, what I took out of your budget as far as what you were trying to convey, and I put that in the proposed column. And so I think that based on what I'm seeing, your subsidy would be closer to 2.375 this year. Does that sound like I did that right? Okay. So that's what's in the far right-hand corner. And then the last sheet you have is just sheriff's office wages of where we're at this calendar year, because that's information I provided on the clerk as well. And so that's 2,012,000 on gross pay, about $1 million on all of our fringe and match. And then as far as the retirement, how it's going to affect if they work the exact same hours next year that they work this year, the sheriff's office will make up about 64,000 of that 235 I told you earlier of retirement increase. And then the square box there on the right is just that same wage breakdown of what was spent on gross wages by job title instead of by wage type, instead of by hourly and salary and all that, in case you wanted to look at that way.
What'd you say? Come back with
And
that.
on the one that is the salary, the sheriff's office wages that's of actual for the calendar year we're in, the box just breaks it down by job title instead of pay code type, if you wanted to look at it that way. So you'll see that either way you look at it, 2,012,000 was what was paid in gross wages.
Okay.
And That's out of the sheriff's office. There were some people who were coded out of the ABC fund. I think it maybe 2 people at last year, points of last year, or
Heard
this
both. I
calendar
heard we
year.
weren't, and then I heard we were, so
Yeah.
we don't know.
So there's a little additional salaries there. I don't think it's necessarily material to the overall $3 million of salaries that get paid off, that's over in ABC. We only budget for about $400,000 in ABC receipts.
Anybody else got any questions?
It's just at the end of the time when it was time to approve the budget, that's a change we made before we approved the budget, was to go ahead and include the known, fire insurance payment. Anybody got any questions? I've got one, in this, looking at the total, even long-term, my position on the radios, although you didn't sign the agreement that we put out there, and that's fine. But are you planning to use what Jennings' presentation with the NXDM radios?
I've got a, he said it's not a quote because he hasn't heard back from them, but it's a rough order magnitude of, if we have to buy all new radios. Now, we remember what happened a couple weeks ago. These radios have a proprietary, so this is including that we bought all new radios, what goes in the car and what goes on your waist, and then all infrastructure. What I'm talking about is the repeater towers, those kind of things. The total of that, he estimated, would be $325. $265 for, looks like for the infrastructure part. He's got $5,000 listed in spares, and then if we do go buy the more expensive radios, then it looks like it's going to be 53, and that would be probably a little more because he's only got 25, and we've got probably close to 40 guys that would have a radio. So
the reason why I ask is his presentation that he gave me, and I think Tim was in there too, it's NXDM radios. Is that what the
These are for
plan
those
is?
Kenwood TK 5720s, which is a different model than we currently use. But this is the simulcast. I think this is UHF, but I think we maybe decided to be better to do VHF, because then fire department could come on board with our system without having to buy their own new radios.
Are you planning to use the grant monies that are available?
We can.
I mean, I think that's significant because there's 90% of the funding available for the infrastructure upgrade. That window's going to open up
Pretty soon, I think.
soon. But the concern I have is the actual radios. And I remember discussing with them in that meeting. He felt comfortable that he can get that approved. Now, that was before the quick committee denied the same radios. And what that would do is put that at a lower scoring. And that 90% of funding, basically, I can't speak for the board to approve those grants, but the quick committee has got a heavy influence on the scoring of those communication plans. My concern would be that we would lose potentially 90% funding for that type of upgrade. And that's why I ask
Yeah,
what the
that's-
plan is.
This has got those TKs in it without propriety.
Okay.
I would say we've got a ton of radios that would be serviceable to other agencies that we could sell on gov deals.
Difference, cost-wise,
Yeah.
that you mentioned, well, I'm saying you mentioned VHF versus
I
you.
don't believe there's a cost in VHF or UHF. It's harder to find VHF channels because it's kind of saturated. That was kind of the benefit of UHF, that and being able to penetrate buildings. That's one of our biggest frustrations is, Lakeland Wesley Village, once you enter that building, you're the lone wolf. You rarely ever hear dispatch at all. So we thought about that, but then again, at the overall cost, I don't think the benefit of that is good enough because he couldn't really guarantee us that even with UHF, that it would still consistently work inside large buildings.
Does that play into the decision? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
That
they
would
would
play
rather you have VHF versus
UHF does have that better penetration, and there's not near as many agencies around on UHF, so it would be easier to find frequencies. Like right now, almost every frequency we have.
I'm saying that committee, though.
The committee? I don't
How
think
does the
they-
committee,
I don't think
do
they
they-
care.
they have a preference in UHF versus VHF? Or it's just this proprietary? Okay.
Yeah. The point of the
Okay.
quick is if we have an earthquake, they can bring down satellite repeaters, because our repeaters will go out.
Yeah.
They can bring down satellite repeaters and then bring down other agencies and talk on the same channel.
All right.
You had mentioned repeater towers in that figure. Is that adding any more than what we have?
I think this is a 4-tower site.
Okay. We currently have
I think in that
3.
meeting, he looked at, we've got 3 now. Pretty sure it was like a go-low tower, like right over the Graves County line, because that southwest is still sketchy even with the Aurora Tower that's up now. But you're looking at 4 repeater sites instead of 3.
Any other questions? All right. Appreciate it.
current budget where we're sitting at. You've seen the two budgets that's been presented. The next question I would have is, where do we see the money coming from? I think it's a good time to have these discussions because we, as you know, we have a January 11th meeting to discuss a capital plan with Southwest One. And not to say that we would commit to anything, but definitely if we're going to meet with the other entities involved to understand what we can and can't commit to. So briefly, since what we've heard today, just to throw numbers on the table here, 90,000 is what the clerk asked to set aside. Looking here, 2.3 million for the sheriff's department. Or the difference, yeah, $1 million.
Yeah, I'm basically right at $1 million more subsidy from what we did this year.
We have, in the future, we'll find out how ALC is going to apply that at the end of the year, but we definitely know that percent decrease is going to it's going to affect us, so I think we estimated about 120,000.
Yeah, the decrease will take effect July 1 of 2022.
2022.
I'm sorry, assuming we pay off the bond March 1st.
Okay.
So it's a future issue, but it's not an issue
It'll have to be.
on the 21, 22.
It'll be 21, 22 budget.
No, 22, 23.
You said
It'll
January
take
1, 22?
July.
No,
July, I'm sorry, I
yes.
thought you said January.
Eric, can you tell me what that number would be on that with the reduction? But I mean, we've got to take into consideration, we've got 530,000 less going out on payment,
I think-
120.
I think it would be like maybe 120
Okay.
or 130.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
just a rough estimate.
Okay, sorry.
Of course, they said, coming from the AOC, they said, notwithstanding the language stays in the bill. I mean, I guess they're still, their budget bill, it could change by then.
Sure.
So they just wanted to make sure that we knew that, but I think moving into that budget year, if it still stands, we got to talk about that.
So retirement's 236,000.
Yeah, around that.
Can you take the current labor force and put 17% to that? That way we can get an idea of what the future 17% as of right now would be.
Well, it was about 7% this year, so you're talking about maybe a little over double over the next 2 years. So I'd say we're probably looking at another $500,000 increase over the next couple of years.
Yeah, the max is 12% per annual year. They did 7% this time. So the total 48%, it leaves us 17% left. We don't know if it'll be another, it can go up. That 7% can go up or down. But if it's $500,000, at least we know that that's $500,000 that we're going to have to come up with over the next couple of years as well. I spoke about water project. That's a easily a $10 million venture. I mean, we've got infrastructure with the roof. Obviously, these things can be plans to, over a period of time, some of these things can be planned out. I don't know where the court is on broadband, but I went ahead and we had a meeting and we got a rough idea of what that cost would be, 26 million to just do the whole county. So you can figure about half of that would be our cost. I know that there are talks with our representatives at the federal level and the state level. I don't know what cushion of the couch the state's going to lift to find some monies. But to me, it just seems like that this is going to be another venture that if we sit around and wait, it's just never going to get done. And the water projects, that's exactly what we've done as a county once this all started. If we would have tackled it, we wouldn't be nearly in the position that we're in now. But either way, it's things to think about as we move forward. And I don't even know how to begin to, I know rates are low, but I don't even know how to begin to get a figure to even consider to look at. But those are things that have been discussed. I've had the engineers look at it, and mainly focusing in parts of the county that do not have access to water. What else am I forgetting? We looked at the budget today, the occupational tax. We don't really know that 56% as far as where we're sitting right now, just for this fiscal year, as Erica explained, when they moved the date from from April to July, that kind of gives a false sense of security. That has a dollar attached to it.
Maybe not necessarily false, just maybe not, just don't rush into feeling super secure.
Well, it is something that we have to think about because we typically see that at the end of the fiscal year. And last year, they moved it into this year. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know that amount. either.
Right.
We don't know what that amount is, correct?
I can get you that. It'll take some time, but I can do it.
Yeah. So that 56%, like she was saying, is not, that's not a 56% known right now. Those monies, let's just say we come into April and they don't change the date, like she was saying, then we're back on our normal schedule, if you will. But that 56% is not accurately reported as far as what we've seen in years past. So that amount does, we should take that into consideration.
And when I was discussing that earlier, the occupational tax, I didn't think to add, historically, we're used to having that under budgeted from what actually comes in. And so we're used to having a little bit of a cushion that goes into that carryover that we use. And so I think that we could maybe safely assume that we will not really have carryover like that from this year, since we're only at 56% with having that additional net profit that was from last year.
And I think the one item that she did point out with the jail, what is the plan if the state inmates continue as they are? What is the plan? Right now, we're projecting about $800,000. And we can do an amendment, but what is the plan? And we have to take that in consideration as well.
That's actually a plan that's coming up closer on the radar than maybe you make it seem, because since this is an amount of money he's used to getting every month, and we're going to come up on some cash flow issues soon for the jail. And we'll have used up the budgeted occupational tax subsidy. So, it's like when I say coming up soon, I mean, like, I'll need to get together a budget amendment and we'll need to address it in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. So just in the few things that we've discussed, you know, the 90,000 for the clerk's office, $1 million for the sheriff's department, 120,000 and that we don't know, or actually we do know in July. That is a long-term number. I'll pull that out, but it's something that we do need to think about, because that is going to hit us, the ALC, 120,000, then 236,000. And then the other projects, yeah, as long as I don't write it.
I kind of want to circle back around as you're talking about, thinking about next year and what changes we'll have for our overall budget, to remember kind of what I talked about. We need to start making plans for planned obsolescence. We need to plan for a few years down the road. Some big piece of equipment's going to be ready to be replaced. Well, let's plan for that a few years ahead, not in the year, this year's the year, or the boiler went out at the jail, this year's the year. Let's plan for that ahead of time. Or radio equipment that's obsolete now, or whatever that case may be. Not only that, but we're sitting in a lot of historical buildings. Are we maintaining those, like preventative maintenance for these historical buildings, or are we reactionary like we are right now, having to fix the roof? So those are things that need to start working their way into budgets for the future as well.
And how we do that. I know we've talked as far as, you know, trying to take and budget. But again, the occupational tax monies that we give, we subsidize in so many of our accounts. But taking a percentage of that and just putting it into exactly what Erica is talking about, so that over a period of time, some of the things that are not as immediate as others, but those monies are built on top of everything else. I mean, when I go back to 2016, infrastructure is just dilapidated, and it's taking a toll on this county. And we have to seriously think about that and how we're going to fund it. And ways that we can get some of these subsidies off of our budget. If we lack the vision, I mean, if you just look at the budget and what she has prepared, you know, the whole thing about the 911 was to get it funded with the right fee, so that that subsidy is available to us, so that we can do these types of projects and not get caught up in the politics of it. You know, that is, we are very close to accomplishing that, and that's our biggest subsidy. I mean, there's no one else is funding that. That's something that we own the PSAP, and that is our biggest subsidy. And there's ways that we can take those monies and get it off of our subsidy to where those dollars can be used for important projects or important needs that we have with our infrastructure, because we have a lot of problems. And every problem is expensive. But you're just looking at just roughly 1.5 million.
Those are items you can put a number to, right? Plus the ones you can't put a number to. I know you didn't talk about roads either, but I know I've heard, we've got some road issues.
Well, and
I've heard
that's,
those discussions as well.
that is a great point. One of the things that Roy and I asked Roy to put, one of the biggest problems in our county we all know that our roads are important, but we have developers or contractors that come in and they build a subdivision, whatever the case may be, and the roads, people come in, and they purchase a house thinking that it's a county road, and they find out that it's not. So I asked Roy, and it was painful coming in back in 2016, 2015, when we immediately had issues with some residents in our community that had major road issues, but they were private roads. We've talked about this. So I asked Roy to put an ordinance together, in which he has, to where when anybody comes in to develop and they're building a road in the county, the road department, he is out there, him and Michael, they are out there. They are inspecting that the roads are done to our standards. And along that way, if it's met the standards, when they are completed, it's immediately brought into the county road system. That way, we have a road department that goes out and maintains these roads. But with that said, we got existing roads. And there's no other way to put it except it's a mess. And we have to navigate that. And every decision we make has a dollar attached to it. It's not, and I want to be very clear on this, including the fee offices and the departments. Everybody in those departments feel that they are the highest priority, and they come to us, and we have to look at what actually we have as a county as a whole, and what is the immediate needs compared to wants. I know that was one of the first things that, even with the department heads, bring me your needs and your wants. And it's no different here. We have to make the best decisions, because the decisions we make today are going to have an effect long term. So, I don't care about the politics. You guys know that. You know how I am. I'm all about getting down and making things happen. But we lose focus, and we need to focus on how we're going to manage our budget. And I felt it was important to do that before we just have the two fee offices come before us, give us a budget, and we approve it. We can't do that anymore. We have to literally go through each budget just like we do our department heads. When we did that, in a way, COVID kind of helped us have those discussions, and time will tell, end of the year, how that pans out, but we've got a lot of work, and we have to be serious about making tough decisions, because this is going to be long-term, and I'm a taxpayer, and I know when you and I sat down, that's the first thing I asked you, was a taxpayer getting out of this? Because I'm a taxpayer, and that's how I look at it. And so we need to have these tough discussions, and we need to figure out what we're going to do with monies that, quite honestly, we don't have in certain cases. So that's where we're at. And I really think we need a lot of discussion on this because of what these two offices are asking. Because once you turn it on, good luck turning it off. And we have to get it right the first time. And it has to be understood from the agencies. You can't lose focus of what the real issue is in this county. And right now we have a budget. That's what we're responsible for. And we cannot lose focus on that. So that's my 2 cents on what we have in front of us going into what we're dealing with our current budget and going into the next couple of budgets. I'd like to have some feedback.
Okay, well, I agree with you, but to think that we have this set in front of us and you think I'm going to find the magic bullet while we're sitting here discussing this, I feel like it's probably unrealistic. So I'm glad that we are starting these discussions early, but with all due respect, I don't know how many budget workshops. I'm glad we had them. I mean, they were rough, obviously, but we started those early last year, not this early, but early last year, and it helped to get us to that point, but it wasn't done in one setting either. So,
Well, here's the thing to that, Monty, is that the statutory date that the two fee offices have, we know what they are. We've been meeting, we've been discussing, and that's why it's like, look, we have got to get together. We don't get it until they present it. That's the thing. I go back to when we went through all that with this current budget that we're in, when we sat down with the department heads and the elected officials, nothing was mentioned from Tim until July 1 hit. That bottom line, and he knows that, it affected our bottom line. And to me, those discussions have to be had. We had no idea that was going to happen in July after everything that we went through. And that's still, on the table. And that's why we're having these discussions. So my office is right there. Some come to see me, others don't. And that's just the honest truth about it. I know that they put a lot of work in to put this stuff together, to show you and to see where we're at. And the CARES money, there's CARES monies there. We've applied for CARES money. We even got some additional CARES monies. They got creative on how to do that. But those monies are not long-term, and you know this. They're not going to be there long-term. It's not going to be a revenue stream coming in every year. And piece by piece, I mean, talk to Brad. If you don't want to talk to me, talk to him. Piece by piece over the past 5 years, the stuff that we had to look at and how to manage it, how to get the monies to where we need to get it at. It takes a lot. And I'm just one vote. It takes the entire fiscal court to see the vision. And we've lost that vision. I'm going to be honest with you. Politics has gotten in the way. And people that know me know I don't care about politics. We got issues, real issues, that we need to work together on. And I sit in my office. They sit in their office. We want to have a budget workshop every day. I'm fine with that. I've had meetings. I know, Justin, you come up. I know these guys don't like the long meetings that we have, but, bringing the engineers in, bringing the water districts in and saying, what's it going to take to grab the bull by the horn on water? I'm tired of hearing it, that people don't have access to water. And then the ones of us that do, everyone here has access to water, right? Or choose not to?
No.
Okay, so he's the only one that doesn't have access to water.
Jason. No water, no internet.
No water,
Internet? Oh, I got internet. God bless you. We got internet.
but
He doesn't need water, but he's got his internet.
but the ones that do, it's in the back of our minds, But there are people out there that, they don't have it. It's something that they deal with every day. And everybody is competing for the dollars that we have. We all know the biggest expense in our budget. Payroll. If you take payroll and you look at what dollars we have left after payroll, there's not that much money. I mean, just to take care of our roads, and we talked about the gas tax and all that, I have no idea what Frankfurt's going to do. I really don't. But either way, the taxpayer, all of us, are going to be affected. And how we navigate those situations is what's key. We have to look at what we have, and we have to be prepared for the knowns, and definitely be prepared for the unknowns. it has taken, it's taken a lot to get to where we're at. And I feel like we're going backwards. So that's, while I'm here, that's what I'm going to be focused on and be passionate about. And we really do. I mean, we got a meeting January 11th. You know, and yeah, we can go into that meeting and sit down and discuss the topic, but are we really in a position to make educated decisions on as far as what we have in front of us? And I don't think it's fair to the taxpayer to hear the budget from the fee offices and us not have those details laid out. And it doesn't matter if it's 90,000 or $1 million. I mean, that, we owe that to the taxpayers. If we need, if we need to have another budget meeting to sit down and go even into more detail, let's do it. I don't have a problem with that. Their statutory date is the 15th. I think we moved it to what, the next court meeting, the 4th? Monday?
And just to remind you, mine is not a budget. Mine is a deputy hire max, that part of it. I know it does bear weight for July, but just like last year, it was basically the same salaries I submitted last December or January. It just didn't follow through in July. I want you to follow through with it in July, don't get me wrong. But this doesn't have to be the final number that you end up with in July just because you passed this today or the 4th or the 15th.
Why don't we schedule another budget workshop after court on Monday? If you got questions, bring them. Maybe now, after hearing both, we can go into more details. I'd really like to see the comm plan. I mean, our infrastructure is, right now, it's just a Band-Aid. I know you guys know that, but it's just a Band-Aid. But again, there's monies out there, there's grants out there that can help us along the way. And if we can identify, not just, you know, in the fee office, but also with other things that we have in front of us, take advantage of you know, low interest rates. We see KIA's got low interest rates. You know, have those discussions, and then we stick to it. We put that plan in place, and we stick to it. But that's my 2 cents on it. I know it's after lunch. I keep people too long in meetings. I can feel your presence.
If I could just talk for a few more seconds, I will not keep you very long, Brad. I know you're hungry. Since Judge brought up the CARES money, I thought I'd kind of give you an update on that. We have our checks from the entire first amount that we were awarded. The second additional monies that were released, we were allotted about 330-ish thousand there additional. Today, after this meeting, I'll be submitting that final CARES Act, getting that together and submitting it for that 333 or whatever it was. And as far as a breakdown of what we ended up with for submission, we did about 150, 160 in our small business grant program. The exact number I'll know by the end of the day when I submit. We submitted about 600. We had available about 666,000 of deputy jailer salaries that we could submit, about 400,000 of 911 salaries that we could submit, and that actually was what I did submit. There was actually more there that I did not submit at the time. Additional guidance came out sometime in between that initial phase that said that we could include deputy jailers and 911 dispatchers and all of EM. So I have about 33,000 in EM salaries, about 618 in sheriff salaries, and about 50 in various other little either things we bought or things we provided or additional cleaning supplies or, you know, those other little items.
What is the total we received today?
We have so far received our initial amount, which was 1,058,000.
58.
And was it 1,058,000? And then, our additional amount will be like 333 is what I want to say, 338. I don't remember. Off the top
And
of my head.
the first check was like 665.
Yeah, the
But
first,
that might-
the first check was 600 something, the second $400,000 check came, so that gave us our entire 1.0058. And then what I'll submit today will be for that last 338 or.
But that may or may not be approved.
Right, so we, yeah.
Because it's
we-
over and
it's not-
above
Yeah, we're not,
our
until the check's in our
DOT.
hand and they say yes. I mean, we've gotten preliminary, approval so that we move on to the next phase where we sign the agreement or whatever, and then today I will submit the expenses that they have to then, yes, approve.
And you guys know that the monies that we used for supporting the local businesses came out of that first CARES money.
Yes, as far as the cash flow.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we plan for another budget workshop after work on Monday? I know you can't be here, Jason, but you can stick around as long as you can.
Yeah, 1 o'clock traffic court starts.
So is Monday more to get more information from the fee offices, or is there anything you need me to do? Because like I said, the remainder of my day will be caught up with CARES money, and then we're off, of course, tomorrow and the next day. So I just want to make sure I have available whatever you all want for Monday.
Why don't we do this? Is that too short of a let's.
You're off tomorrow?
Depending on
Yeah,
what you're
let's-
asking me.
Yeah,
Well,
let's-
depending on what you need for Monday. I feel like I've presented you with everything I have to give you, unless there, other than the occupational tax information, and it's not gonna be
Well, I mean,
a
it's-
quick get.
We're not
It's
gonna have
be
anybody to
a long
talk,
term get.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
You are more than welcome to call myself. I'm not going out of town or
But, I
anything.
mean,
You can call myself.
Really, there's no work.
Yeah, more like take a few days for self-reflection, I think is what you would really have time
What's
for,
the-
unless you
yeah.
want more information, and then maybe we should push it back. I
So
don't,
what's
whatever y'all want.
what other days are you gonna be
We can
gone?
do it on the 8th.
Okay, you'll be back on the 8th? Okay. I didn't. Is that, oh, you did? Oh, Friday?
The 11th, is that a Monday?
We can do it, we've got, I tell you what, we've got the meeting on the 11th at 4. You guys want to get together before that meeting?
Can you Zoom?
I can Zoom, but I won't be in town. Yeah.
I think they're going to try to set up a Zoom. We can set up a Zoom.
On the 11th?
Yeah.
Then, okay.
Well, now, wait a minute. The 15th is deadline.
Well, I mean, we'll just have to have a special call.
Why don't we just come back on the 4th? And we can get some more numbers and detail on some of the projects that eventually going to be presented to the court. That way you at least know what those projects are and what the costs are. And some of those projects can be done over several fiscal years. But, and then we can adjust from there. Does that sound fair?
It's tight, but it sounds like it's the only, I don't have anything, but y'all are the ones that do, so.
Because their budgets have to be approved before the 15th. So
Yeah.
we'd have to meet again before the 15th.
But we're gonna have to do that anyway,
Yeah,
if we're meeting after that meeting, because the next actual fiscal court called meeting would be after the 15th. So we're gonna have to have
right,
a special called meeting for these two.
right. Well, I think. You got anything pressing on the 5th? We got the one grant for the Lucas device.
I thought we didn't get it. Oh, you're
Well,
saying,
yeah, I'm sorry.
you're not
Yeah,
saying the
we didn't
grant,
get the
you're saying
grant.
the bid.
Yeah. I mean, We're already meeting on Monday for the court meeting.
I know, it's just, it's tight, but it is what it is. Schedules are what they are.
All right, y'all, we'll just plan to meet after court on Monday, and then we'll go from there.
But just tell Erica she can't take a vacation.
I mean, I will get whatever information you want for me to get.
Everybody else gets it but her.
I just don't know what I could get between now and then that I haven't already given you, other than, what I see with the occupational tax, but that's not something I'm gonna be able to get by Monday. It wouldn't be something I could get by next Friday. So either way, I'm not gonna have that for you.
We're meeting on the 11th. We got the 8th as well, and if we gotta do Zoom, we'll do Zoom. It is a tough window. How many days?
This is a leap year, so Erica's already had to
Days
work
you gotta
one
get.
extra day this year.
Send it that day.
True, technically I had today on a vacation day, and here I am not on vacation.
As long as they have it by the 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you say, Jay?
I said, this is a leap year, so Erica's already had to work one extra day this year.
All right. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Touch your